Hello and welcome to the Doc Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mike DeLuke, and it's my mission to help you lead a happier, healthier, and more prosperous life, both personally and professionally. Hey everybody, I am so excited to bring you this introductory episode of Dr. Mike's Motivational Mondays. This is part of the Doc Podcast platform, and it'll be a quick 5 to 15 minute episode every Monday to help motivate and inspire you and get you into a positive frame of mind for the week ahead. What we do is difficult and it can be a grind. Trust me, I've been there and I can relate to what you're going through. There are so many stresses that come at you each and every day that it can be exhausting. It may even feel like it's a struggle just to keep your head above water some days. Then you go on social media and see everyone showing off how great their practice is and how wonderful everything is, and it can be demoralizing. And that's why I created the Doc platform. And it's especially why I created Motivational Mondays. I want to inspire you and guide you on your journey so that you can find fulfillment and happiness in your professional and personal life. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you how wonderful you are and that you should just be appreciative for all that you have, because while that may be true, it doesn't provide you with the tools necessary to enact meaningful change. Instead, I'm going to challenge you because I'm a strong believer that we grow most when we are challenged, when we look at ourselves and at our failures. Just like the muscles in your body, you need to push them for them to grow. So today's topic is going to be delayed gratification. To first give you a bit of my background, for those of you who don't know my story, I started my own orthodontic practice from scratch in 2005. I had no money and no clue how to run a business. To make matters worse, the Great Recession hit just 3 years later, exactly when things were really starting to ramp up in the practice. But I'm proud to say that through significant hard work and fiscal discipline and responsibility, I was able to build DeLuke Orthodontics from just an idea to a multi-million-dollar enterprise in less than 10 years. So after starting with nothing, I was actually able to retire from clinical practice in my mid-40s. And I'm now blessed to be able to devote the remainder of my career to teaching my friends and colleagues how to succeed clinically, administratively, and financially. To do so, I've started this new company I mentioned called DeLuke Orthodontic Coaching, or DOC. If you haven't been to the DOC website yet, head over to www.theorthocoach.com and check out all the amazing content. You'll find links to the DOC community, which is hosted by locals, amazing CE courses, and an opportunity to enroll in a one-on-one coaching session with me. Again, that's theorthocoach.com. In my almost 20 years of running a practice, I experienced pretty much just about everything you can imagine. I'll actually tell you many of these stories and tie them into some of the messages we're going to pass along on future episodes of Motivational Mondays, as well as in the Doc podcast. But for the purposes of today's Motivational Monday, we're going to focus on delayed gratification. Delayed gratification is defined as the ability to delay an impulse for an immediate reward to receive a more favorable reward at a later time. I'll repeat that. It's the ability to delay an impulse for an immediate reward to receive a more favorable reward at a later time. In today's instant gratification society, it's not easy to delay gratification. We want the immediate reward, right? Because number one, looks like everyone else has it. Why shouldn't we? And number two, we deserve it, right? And so we go on social media, we see everyone else enjoying everything you can imagine: beautiful houses, luxury cars, lavish vacations, gorgeous second homes, so on and so forth. After all, we deserve that too, right? I mean, we're doctors. We've achieved the highest level of academic and professional success. We've worked super hard to get where we're at. We deserve it. Well, in a word, no. We don't technically deserve any of that. Now, at this point, you might be thinking, Mike, that's not very motivational. I don't think this Motivational Mondays thing is going to work out too well, but stay with me for a moment. As I said, I'm always going to try to challenge you and push you and be honest and real. What I mean is, If you can delay your gratification and live within your means by keeping your spending well below your income and save everything you can in between, you will earn all those things and more. And when you get them and you can really afford them, it is so much sweeter. That's very different from deserving them. I'll actually have my CPA and also my investment advisor, two separate people, on the Doc podcast in the near future. And they can actually go into the X's and O's and explain the best way to do this. But for today's purposes, we're just going to focus on the general concept. How do you do it? How do you delay gratification? Well, I can tell you personally how my wife Renee and I did it. Renee will be on a Doc podcast episode as well in the near future, and we'll go into our story in much more detail. But today I'll just kind of provide the Cliff's Notes version, or I guess I'm maybe dating myself. I don't know if they still have Cliff's Notes. It's probably all AI at this point. But either way, the abbreviated version. So it was in the early 2000s. I was at UConn in my ortho residency. We were broke. Not an exaggeration. We had $0 in assets and had $250,000 in combined student loan debt. That may not sound like a lot by today's numbers, but 20 years ago, around the turn of the century, that was a tremendous amount of student loan debt. Renee was working 2 jobs as an occupational therapist. I was moonlighting on weekends doing general dentistry as we were trying to make as much money as possible. So UConn didn't pay a salary to its orthodontic residents, and we had to pay for our master's tuition. So we were just trying to make some money. I was trying to make some money doing general dentistry part-time on the side. And while we didn't make much money between the two of us, we from that time decided we were going to spend less than we made. So again, it was down here, it wasn't up here. We were going to spend less than we made. And then we saved everything we could. Renee put us on a tight budget and we stuck to it. We'll actually tell you some funny stories about this in the podcast, so stay tuned. But if you fast forward 20 years and look at us now, we're financially free and technically retired. We work now because we want to, not because we have to. I have a tremendous passion for orthodontics. And even though I no longer practice clinically, I'm devoted to spending the second half of my career helping you, my colleagues, succeed. So you're probably wondering, how did you do it? How did you go from broke to financially free during the Great Recession in less than 20 years? The key, you guessed it, delayed gratification. We didn't spend money we didn't have. And we waited to purchase more expensive things until we could truly afford them. Again, we had the guidance of our CPA and our investment advisor, but as the practice made more money each year, we didn't spend it all. So the income went up and our expenses, we didn't keep them proportionally. We kept the greatest amount of income we could and we saved and invested the difference. And it's not that we didn't spend money or enjoy our lives. We absolutely did, but we didn't spend even close to what we made. For example, we bought a bigger house, but not a mansion. Nicer cars, not Ferraris. A lake house, but not a castle on a lake. A condo in Florida, but we bought one that we could rent out when we weren't using it to bring in some passive income. And with the margin between what we made and what we spent, that margin kept getting bigger. We invested in paper assets, real estate, businesses such as luxury apartments and storage units all across the United States. Had we spent all that we made, we would have missed out on those investment opportunities that came our way because of our margins. Remember, it's all about cash flow. As an aside, if you haven't read Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, I highly recommend it. It truly changed how my wife and I felt about and approached money to this day. It helped us understand that delaying gratification lets you build assets that put money in your pocket without having to do anything at all. Contrast that with the earned income from your practice, which requires you to do a lot of heavy lifting. How long do you want the stress of having to do that heavy lifting? Think of it this way. Those who spend all that they make have a cash flow pattern of the poor. Money in, money out. They just have more zeros after their numbers and they buy nicer things, but they're still left with the same amount at the end of the month, nothing. And those people will inevitably miss out on the opportunities we were able to capitalize on because they don't have that margin to invest, right? They have lots of doodads, and as Kiyosaki calls them, as he refers to them, but they don't have any real assets. I can honestly say that achieving financial freedom is one of the single best feelings you can imagine. And because we were literally poor 20 years ago, feeling of stressing over every bill that comes in is still a pretty fresh wound. I mean, Renee used to literally need a glass of wine to sit down and pay bills. That's no joke. So to close, let's just review some simple steps you can take to get you started achieving financial freedom today. The first thing I recommend you to do is set goals for yourself and your family where you clearly define where you want to be financially in 1, 5, 10, and 20 years. Decide when you want to be at the point that you practice because you want to, not because you have to. Remember, you can't achieve what you can't define. We'll have more on goal setting in some upcoming episodes. Second thing, if you're serious about creating financial freedom, it's imperative that you fill out a balance sheet with your income, expenses, assets, and liabilities, all of them, and then review it and update it annually. It's your financial report card. And for Renee and me, it wasn't pretty when we first did ours 20 years ago. It was actually quite depressing. As an aside, save your first one. We did, and it's fun to look at it over time and see how much you've grown both conceptually and financially. The third thing, start delaying your gratification today. Today. Grow your income more than your expenses and your assets more than your liabilities. Before you know it, looking at your balance sheet becomes fun. So to summarize, define your goals, learn your financial report card, and make a commitment to yourself and your family to have fiscal discipline and delay your gratification. And I realize that even talking about this may temporarily add to your stress and anxiety. I promise if you follow these steps, the stress and anxiety will be short-lived, and it will be quickly replaced by feelings of confidence and security. You'll be amazed at how much your stress and anxiety will actually just start to decrease over time as you move closer to true financial freedom. I can also assure you that the gratification you delay is much sweeter and more enjoyable when you can truly afford it. And as always, remember, you have been blessed with the ability to do great things. Have an amazing day and an amazing week. Thank you for watching this episode of the Doc Podcast. Be sure to visit theorthocoach.com to get access to CE courses or schedule a private one-on-one coaching session with me. And remember to join the Doc community on Locals for more great content designed to help you succeed both personally and professionally. Just go to Locals and search for the Doc community. You can also find Doc on Instagram at @theorthocoach. And remember, you have the power to do amazing things.